Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast, Talk to Rami. I'm your host, Rami. Today is going to be an exciting conversation because we're going to talk about food, my favorite subject. I love that. I have Monique Karabach here in our studio. So happy to have her here. She's a storyteller, foodie, and entrepreneur, female entrepreneur, and she reviews restaurants as well too. But she's just all in food, and we're gonna learn about her and her journey, her story, and everything else. Monique, welcome. Welcome
Thank
to the
you. Thank you
show.
for
Thanks,
having
thanks for
me.
coming. Thanks for
Yes.
coming. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at your Instagram. So amazing that you basically taste every kind of food. Or what is the story?
I
How did you
try.
get so
Yeah.
interested in the food? You love eating?
Oh man, food has always been a passion. Ever since I can remember, like in middle school and high school, I was always standing behind my mom trying to figure out how do you make roti? How are you making the sabji? Like I want to learn. And then, she would teach me here and there. Sometimes she would say, let me cook, you're in my way, but
Oh,
most of the time she'd be like, let me show you, this is how you do it. And so that definitely sparked my interest. And then as the years went on, I really was just interested in how cuisine and culture and different types of people, how we all connect through food. And so I went to St. Edward's and I studied international development there.
hmm.
And I really thought I was going to work at the UN. I'd studied abroad in Geneva and was at the UN and was like, this is not for me.
What wasn't for you?
It was just,
You don't like politics?
I could tolerate politics if I thought it was going to be the place for me. And I just felt very out of place. Like I
That
didn't
was the kind
feel,
of influence you.
it was like, I don't think I'm going to make a change on a global level. What can I do on a local level? And I love connecting with people. And what do people do most? They eat. So, how can I serve the people around me and connect with people around me? And so I try to work here and there, some odd jobs, try to do the typical 9 to 5, and it did not
Yeah.
work for me. So I said, I need to figure out something else that's gonna like bring me to life. So I started cooking for families I used to nanny for, and they loved it. They said, it's like a home cooked meal, but elevated, and I'm using really good ingredients, and it's much better than takeout. And so I kind of used my connections here in Austin with past work to start my private chef business. So I started out doing specifically meal prep for clients that have dietary restrictions. So people that can't just go and get takeout or can't go even to Whole Foods and find what they need because they can't have certain oils or nuts or dairy, or they have celiacs, like all types of dietary restrictions. And so I really use that as my like platform of I'm serving those that want really good food, but they can't find it and they don't have the time to make it, or they don't want to make it, which is whatever your reason is, it's fine. And so I still 7 years later am doing that. I provide meal prep and I also do dinner parties. I do a lot of bachelorette parties, events, small scale events to cook for people in town, and I really love doing it. So I'm all self-taught. I didn't go to culinary school, which
Wow, that's so interesting because I was in the restaurant, in an Italian restaurant. I have a, restaurant background, but I didn't go to culinary school either. I learned from dishwasher and, washing dishes, cooking, all that stuff. But you didn't go to culinary school. And how did you just from mom? Just
I
watching
think I
or
just
practice?
it was a lot of trial and error. And of course, I could go to culinary school any day. I might. Who knows if I'll go in the future, but I think I also have a bit of a natural talent, certain things that we're naturally good at. And so I am not good at 100 million different things, but I'm really good at cooking and I know my food and I know what goes together. And I'm also not afraid to experiment and do things with trial and error. So
You practice and you start cooking, and
yeah.
because I think the cooking is more than just cooking. I think cooking is an art, is a love
Yeah.
language, don't you think? And
Yes.
sometimes you have to be creative. Like with the clients that you have, they all have different requirements. Like somebody's a gluten free, somebody's like that, and that market is very niche right now. Like a lot of people, due to their personal health or for their lifestyle, basically I think they call him a lifestyle chef,
Yeah.
something like that. Since you started to right now, how the industries improve, or isn't getting saturated, or is it more competitive? How that's working right now when you started to now?
Yeah. I feel like when I started, there was very few
Very few. That's what I
private
think.
chefs in town, and I feel like it's definitely grown quite a bit. And I'm in touch with quite a few private chefs that are starting out and they're wondering how to build their clients and things of that nature. I don't see a lot of people doing what I do, which is every single client gets to decide exactly what's on their menu every week. I don't send out a menu and say, pick and choose. I say, what do you want this week? Or what are your favorite things to eat right now? And then I build a menu off of that for them to choose from. So I'm very one-on-one, and it's a very almost intimate relationship with my clients because I'm really asking and wanting to serve them exactly what they're looking for in their food. So
Is that your process? Like, walk me through your process. I'm a new
sure.
client, and because you're all about connecting, I know you love connecting with people. And what is your process like when you have a new clients and they say, "Hey, Monique, I want you to be our chef."
Yeah. So I have a very long list of
Really?
questions and things that I send, all my details. I start out asking, what are your allergies? That's the first question because
That's important.
I need to know what you can and can't have, and especially if it's a true allergy versus a preference. Um, and then we kind of go through what flavors do you like? Can you handle spice? Do you not like spice? What are you interested in ethnic foods? Are you different types of cuisine? And I send ideas from meals that my clients like, and you know, I make sure they understand you never have to book me for longer than however you want. You're not like you have to book me every week for the next 3 months or something. It's an easy type of scheduling with me because I don't want anybody to have to pay for
Yeah.
something they don't want, or if they're traveling or things like that. So I ask a lot of questions, and I want to get to know the person so that I can create something for them that they'll truly enjoy and want to come back for again.
And
So
you
yeah.
go on site or you do it like remotely?
I used to go on site and cook in people's homes, and I don't do that anymore. I think since COVID, that definitely, that was out of the question. But now it's more of like a
You have people that
convenience.
asking that, can you be on site?
Yeah, I can if it's a dinner party or an event, but for meal prep, it's strictly drop off. It's just more convenient for me. And I'm a mom to a 2-year-old
Oh,
and a full-time mom and work part-time. So it's a lot. So I'm juggling a lot of things. So for most of my clients understand, I'm going to drop things off, and it works for them
what is
too.
the hardest thing to be like, female entrepreneur? Like, you are a female entrepreneur, you're a chef, you do all that stuff. Is it a starting a business? Is the idea? Is it creation? Is it a long-term goal? What is it? What is the hiccups?
I think a lot of times, just in general, people don't take women seriously. And if a man was doing this, they would look at you differently. Like, a man
What
can do everything, but if you're a mom, why are you trying to work?
why you say
Or
that?
I just definitely get that vibe from people. And
Are you serious?
definitely just in Austin, I think people are more open-minded, but I'll tell somebody that I work full-time, or I'm sorry, that I'm a full-time mom and I work part-time, and they're like, "Well, why are you doing that? Why not just or why not put your daughter in daycare, or just question my choices and how I'm
Basically,
raising
the question
my
your ability.
yeah, why how can you do both?" And it's like, if a man were doing that, you would never ask that, right? So, all that to say, my clients trust me and believe in me, which I'm very grateful for, but um, not everyone thinks that way. And
Did you trust yourself when you started it? Or
that's a great question.
yeah,
I was very scared and was like,
why?
I don't know if I can because, well, when it was just me and my husband, I had all the time in the world and I could plan ahead. And then you have this little baby that needs you. And, you know, postpartum was very, very hard for me. And I wanted to keep that other part of my identity alive with cooking and being a chef and a content creator and media and marketing. And so it was, you know, how do I balance everything? And I'm not going to say that I'm perfect at balancing it, but I definitely do my best. And
Well, you're going through it because
yeah.
it's not only cooking, be honest with you, because a lot of people out there, they want to be a chef, they go to culinary school, they learn all the arts and everything, but you know, is when it comes to market yourself, when it comes to tell people who you are, what you do, and why you do it, that's where the people kind of stuck because they have a talent in creation, no doubt. The great chef, they do all that stuff. But when it gets to that part and, you know, they have some challenges, did you have those challenges and how did you overcome that? Did you learn it? Like you learn how to cook? Did you learn how to market yourself?
That's a great question. You know, kind of to answer your question in a backwards way, I started my food blog and my Instagram because my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, we were dating only a couple months, and he was like, "You're so passionate about food and you're really good at talking about food. You should just start a website and an Instagram and see what happens." And I was like, "That's silly, but okay." And then here I am 7 years later. So I don't
Actually,
know.
I read your blogs. I look at your website, your blog. It's well done, very nice, and your blogs are great.
Thank you. So, I mean, I've always been passionate about writing and just sharing my point of view. And I think anytime somebody's authentic, people can see that. People can tell that
I
you're
agree.
being genuine instead of I'm trying to sell something. It's no, I'm just being me, and if you like it, that's awesome. Like join and come along for the ride, but I'm not ever going to try to be something I'm not, which is why, you know, I've been like my Instagram has been a very steady following. It's not 100,000 people, and I have friends that have that many followers. There's nothing wrong with that, but I just don't think that's ever going to be me because I'm not trying to appeal to every single person in every single market. I think my community comes to me and I go to my community for, you know, specific reasons. And
You just said a couple of times being me. How important for you is to be you, because I can feel it from your character that you said, I want to be me. And, you know, I don't care what you're going to think about me. How did you came to that conclusion that it's about me? Even with Jules, your husband, you know, he didn't try to change you, and he actually supported you, and it's very brave from the, you know, your partner that, you know, support you. And what you said, I want to be me. What did you decide to be you?
yeah,
Why?
thank you for saying that too, because he's definitely my rock. Like I think,
And that's important.
yeah, that partnership.
But being you, why you want to be you?
I
It's a lot
haven't,
of people, they pretend to be somebody
yeah,
else. That's what I'm asking.
I haven't always been super confident in who I am. I think honestly, since becoming a wife and then most recently becoming a mom, like who I am is more than enough. This little beautiful baby of mine thinks I'm the world,
Wow.
and that's all that I need. Like that's it. And so she loves me for who I am. My husband loves me for who I am. I love me for who I am. I don't know if there's a specific pinpoint other than just the process of learning who you are and accepting yourself and loving yourself. I'm also very spiritual. I grew up in a different religion than I am now, but I think regardless of whatever you want to label it, just knowing yourself and looking inward and spending time really digging deep and quote unquote doing the work of learning of past things or experiences or trauma that you've been through, and moving forward and accepting yourself regardless of all of that. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, absolutely. But the reason I'm asking, a lot of people are listening or watching, especially female entrepreneurs. If you are listening or watching, this is good for you because most of them, they love what they're going to do. And they're not taking the action because they don't know who they are and they don't want to be who they want to be. And, you know, as an outside perspective. And you just nailed it that if you want to reach what I've been I had reached, you
Mm-hmm.
got to be you. And
Mm-hmm.
that's important. Don't you think? Don't you agree that?
And also to not compare yourself to everyone around you, especially in the age of social media. You can't just look at somebody and say, I want to be that, or I want to look like her, or be that couple, or be that family. Social media is not always the truest form of life. And
It's a public life.
it's a highlight reel of the best parts of our life. So I
Do you
think
do you hide a lot in your social media?
I think I did at the beginning, and then I was
You did?
very honest about how hard pregnancy was. I think once COVID hit, I was like, okay, guys, we cannot sugarcoat things anymore. My pregnancy was difficult.
Wow. Proud of you.
Postpartum was difficult. Even now, when I go to a restaurant and I'm never wanting to badly talk about a place, but I will be honest and say, hey, this dish wasn't very good. You probably shouldn't order it, but these are 3 other things you should order, and not sugarcoating things, but still being kind.
Yeah, because again, it goes back to be you, because you review restaurants. You go to a restaurant and you're going to write a review. You're going to write a blog. And if you're not honest, what is the point to go into that restaurant and write a review anyway? How restaurant owners, I'm sure you had that incident that you talk to them, you give them your feedback, how they react. Like,
Most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, they will say, thank you for saying it
are you
directly to
serious?
me
Wow.
instead of,
Time changed.
oh, really? I don't think anybody wants to hear that something isn't bad, but if, I think people that want to do their best are open to constructive feedback. So that's how I will phrase my feedback to the restaurant or the chef or the owner, that these are, and I always like to do a compliment sandwich. So a compliment, constructive feedback in the middle, and then the bottom is another compliment, so that they know I'm not trying to outright say, be negative or say that something wasn't good enough. Like, there's always going to be good and bad anywhere you go, or in anything in life.
You wrote for publications as well, and articles and all that stuff, and you're a contributor to some publications. And then anytime anywhere ask you that, hey, this write-up is good, but can you change it a little bit?
Yeah.
You had that?
Hmm.
Wow.
And I'll say no. I'm so sorry if that's how
Are you
you feel,
serious?
but I can't, like I said, even though I have a small community, they are my community, and I'm grateful that they trust my opinion, and so I'm not going to lie to them and steer people wrong. That's not the moral thing to do. There's
This is amazing. No, I am serious, because this is the transparency, and I know you love your community, you serve in your community, and that's why your community is growing. Now I can connect the dots.
yeah,
That
thank
with
you.
transparency and the trust that you build, because the most important is trust.
Hmm.
And how we're going to build it. And when you do that, you pretty much, bulletproof.
I mean, that's a great way of putting it. I just am grateful to be in this position. Like I said, I started my blog 7 years ago, and I never thought I'd still keep up with it, or that it would turn into what it's turned into. I don't like the term influencer. I think it's very trendy and kind of lacks
What would you call it?
a content creator.
I
I
like
create
that.
content based on visits, experiences, products, and it's so multifaceted. You don't just take 5 photos, take 2 seconds to make a video, and then put it together. I mean, I think your team knows this as well. It's a lot of work editing,
lot of work.
producing.
We work with some chefs, a lot of work. Have you ever decided to have your food show? Like, I'm serious.
I applied on Chopped a couple times, like 2 or 3 times, and I never heard back. But
Brave of you.
I would still love to do it. Chopped, if you're listening, I would love
Yeah.
to be on your show. There's a couple chefs in Austin that have been on Chopped, and they're
Yeah.
like, it is.
Yeah, I interview one.
Yeah.
And, she was in there. It's very stressful.
I don't know if I could. I mean, I could. Chopped is like a one-time thing. There are definitely shows that you have to be
Yeah.
on for like a whole season. I was,
They have a process.
yeah, I was a prospect in couple of those, and I was like, I can't.
But you can start your YouTube show by yourself on camera
Yeah.
and cooking. And why don't you do that? Because of the,
I don't. totally have the time for that. I
Yeah.
think I would love to do that sometime in the future if I could
I think you should.
invest. Thank you. If I could invest that time in myself, I think I will. I know YouTube is like, it's so funny because I always thought YouTube was not, like, YouTube's been around forever and
Yeah.
it just keeps getting bigger.
It's getting bigger.
And so it is something to look into.
Especially
Absolutely.
like that. But you know, when I always had a question for the chefs that when you go, especially you that you do write-ups, when you go to restaurant, the food is the only thing that you look at.
No, I mean, atmosphere is definitely a big thing, but the service
Wow.
as well. And sometimes I will say, if the restaurant knows you're coming and you're going to be writing about them, they're going to be extra nice.
You don't tell them?
Well, that's the thing. They know if I'm coming in and it's a scheduled like media visit, but then I'll come back by myself or with a friend and
Is it
see.
different?
Most of the time it's not, which is great. But if it is, I make sure to tell them. I'm going to say, I won't necessarily say it online unless it's like a very, very drastic difference. But again, it's kind of about giving that restaurant or the owner the constructive feedback of, you know,
I remember the old days when I had a restaurant, we would get, you know, restaurant reviewer from Austin American Statesmen from different newspaper, and they would not announce, but I knew it always, and that would keep us in our
on your toes.
on our toes, you know. And I would tell the managers, you're always going to be good and everything else. But I asked you this question: if you go to a restaurant, they have a great food, the service medical, you know, like not good, and then you go to a restaurant that they have a, you know, medium, decent food, but the service is amazing. Which restaurant would you go to?
The good food. I don't.
Wow.
I mean, it's always for me. It's always going to be
That's
about the
good. That's a
food.
good discussion because I always want to ask, you know, my fellow restaurateurs and the chef, why? Food
is-
over experience?
Yeah, food is always everything. The food is the experience. If I'm
But how could you go to a restaurant that the food is good? I have nothing against the great
Yeah,
food,
yeah.
trust me. But how could you go to a restaurant? They have a great food, but they don't have a good service. You know,
you're just in Europe. You're just in Europe. It's nothing's
okay, I'm
different.
done. I'm done. You're right. I came back from Europe 3 months ago, and you know, I had to go chase the waitress to come and serve us,
Oh,
and the
yeah.
food was good and everything. I was in Bremen in Germany, and because over there the tip is not, they work for the hourly, and they think that's their job. Drop the food, pick up the food. That's it. And I told my wife, "Why I can't take this?" She said, "Okay, hold on. You're in Europe. You're not in the United States. It's
Yeah.
different." And I knew that I live in Europe, but for us, we can take it. But nothing against the great food. I love great food. For me, if they have a great food and the services are good, I don't go back. If they have a decent food and the service is good, I go back. You know, I don't know. The perspective is
I
different.
think it depends what the experience you're going after, especially if it's an occasion or you're with family, or you know, it depends on what you're looking for. For me, it's always, I want what tastes best. I want the good stuff.
Just give me the food and leave me alone. Go, I call you when I'm done.
Yeah, yeah,
And then
that's fine with me. Don't come bother me while I have a mouthful of food.
Hey,
Give me my space.
if anybody watches this or listen to this, you know, just make sure you invite her to the restaurant. You have a great food. Don't worry about the service. She would be fine. No, I'm just joking. But you know, going back to, you know, your career as a chef, where are you gonna take it? Where is gonna be for Monique?
You know, I keep going back and forth about that because is this something I want to keep investing in, or is it something I'm okay just kind of coasting down the road with and focusing on motherhood or putting my efforts into something else?
Because Joel, your husband, he's very supportive.
Yeah. And so
He's very
whatever I want to
supportive.
do,
That's
if I said, I'm going to start, I don't know,
He says yes.
yeah, like I'm going to start a company making socks. I don't know. He would just be like, okay, like whatever makes you happy and whatever you think is going to fulfill you. And so it's very special to have somebody that's supportive. But
Does he have a brother? My sister's single. I'm just joking.
oh, no, I'm sorry. But I love food so much. I don't see it not being a part of my future. I just don't know if I would expand, if I want to.
Are you doing it as a fun right now, or are you doing it as a business? You do it as a fun and make money, or you really doing it? Okay, I'm a female entrepreneur. I'm gonna make this. I'm gonna scale it, and I want to be, this is what I want to do. Which,
Yeah, I've gotten that question so many times and I still don't have an answer. I don't know if I want to scale it. I don't know if it's just fun and it's
you're in
an
comfort zone.
opportunity. Yeah. And so I do pray and say, is if there's more opportunity out there for me, then bring it. And
But
if
you're not chasing it.
no,
Why?
I think
You are very capable. I'm serious. You are a very talented,
thank you.
scary individual.
I don't know if
You don't want,
if I want to scale it. So that's a big question I have. I'm really happy right now with my small scale clients
have you
and
ever turned down
events.
the clients? Do,
Well, I have a wait list. I can't handle it, and I haven't hired. I haven't scaled. I haven't hired help unless it's for like a larger event that I don't want to say no to. But for the most part, it's
that's
just
a good
me.
position to be in.
Yeah, I don't mind it, and if the time or if I have that feeling of you really should listen to this little voice in your head telling you to go for it, then I'll do it. But for now, with my daughter just being 2 years old, I'm happy where I'm at. And, if the opportunity presents itself in the future, then
As
we'll
she
see.
gets older, it gets easier,
Yeah.
right? She goes to kindergarten and all that stuff.
Who knows?
You might have more time
Yeah.
and do that. But how important is, this is always asked the female entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter what they do.
Mm-hmm.
How important is your support system?
Mm-hmm.
Is it really very important?
It is because I feel so confident in what I can do because of my support system. I think if I was just doing this on my own, it would take a lot more grit and ambition. And I do have grit and ambition, but like this love and support of my husband and my sisters and my mom, and they really believe in me, and it helps me believe in myself even more. I already believe in myself, but it helps when they
Really helps,
truly believe in what I'm doing and think that I have the talent and the skills, and they all support me 100%. And
Did you grow up in the very supporting environment when you were growing up? Oh,
I don't know how to answer that. I feel
I
like
touched something.
no. I'm like, how do I answer that? I don't think
Like your
there was
your
certain
father passed away not
Yeah.
long ago. God rest his soul. But your mom and dad, was it a supporting environment to support you?
This is the
Like,
thing, which maybe you would understand too. Like as a first generation American,
I get it.
the way they brought us up was 100 times better than the way they were brought up. So they really did.
In which way?
I mean, they were both brought up in India. My dad grew up second half of his childhood in London, and it was hard. Like the life wasn't easy.
They were moving a lot.
It wasn't easy in those countries at those times. Post-colonialism and things like that, and being Indian in a small town in England wasn't easy either. And then moving here and being very Indian in Texas, it's a lot of change
You
for
went
them.
through a lot.
And so for me, all I knew was America. And
You were born here.
yes, all I knew was America, but they worked their butts off to give us opportunity and give us everything we could. So if we wanted to do something different than what they wanted, it was almost like, but look at everything we've done for you. Why would you want something else? That's how I can see it now. Back then I couldn't see that because I really wanted to learn piano. I wanted to do more music and art, and they just couldn't see the value in that, which, like I said, now I understand. As a kid, I couldn't understand why they didn't care. But as an adult, it's like, yeah, you're probably not going to be a musician when you grow up. But for them, it was more of, what can we do to give you the best future? You need to learn math. You need to learn science. You need to be a doctor or something
Education.
along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of international. Like for us, I'm from Iran. I'm Persian, and I've been here for 30 years, and I know that. And my kids, born here. It's very hard, I think, to translate what I went through and how my parents, they raised me now that I'm raising them.
Yeah.
And I know where you're coming from because, and that time you didn't get it, did you? You didn't get it
And you would resent them.
Yeah. Until what age?
I mean, probably my 20s. I think
Are you
even
serious?
through college, I was still upset that they didn't let me experience what I wanted because in college, I got to go crazy and do anything I wanted and explore music and arts and things like that. And
Because it's totally is a cultural thing.
mhm,
Is a perspective of our parents, you and I,
mhm,
how they grew up, back home, and now they're transferring. They want to be who they were and their kids in the new environment and society, which is
yeah,
very hard to change
mhm,
because environment is everything, as you know that.
yeah,
Just do you think your son or daughter,
daughter, yeah,
your daughter is going to be the same as you
mhm,
are or your grandmother or her grandmother? It's tough, and that cultural shock, I think my kids are going through that too
mhm,
because I'm a very not very Persian, like very strict, but I
mhm,
value a lot of stuff in my culture.
mhm,
Respect is one of them. And but I understand. I don't want to. I always tell them, do what you love.
yeah,
Go do what you love. You want to do this. You want to play soccer. You want to go track. You want to go. You don't want to even work. One of my kids just decided doesn't want to go to college. I said that's fine.
mhm,
Work for me,
mhm.
and he's gonna learn. But it changed a lot. And are you still holding grudges?
No, I 100% love and respect and appreciate that
What
perspective.
changed
Um,
as you got older?
I think
What
as I
changed?
as I got older and saw life is hard as an adult, man, it's so easy being a kid or even a teenager or being in college in America, pretty much under the age of 25. You're still under your parents', health insurance. So I was still a kid up until I had to get my health insurance on my own and really pay my bills and things like that. And I, made sure to have those conversations with them too of bringing up hard stuff like, why didn't you let me do these things? And hearing their perspective and saying, oh, that makes total sense. You were really looking out for me. You just did it in a kind of funny way. Um, and they did better than their parents, and I'm doing better than my parents. And Nadia, my daughter, is going to do better than me. And that's the goal, is to just we learn what we can. And I think my parents did an amazing job with what they had. And like I said, they worked their butts off. They both worked full time. My dad was a postman, so he worked for the U.S. Post Office, and my mom was a nurse in a hospital.
Wow, tough
And those are
jobs.
not
Not the
glamorous
easy
jobs.
jobs.
Yeah. So, they made sure to give us every opportunity to live our best lives. And now, it's great being able to look back and see that and appreciate it, even if it did take me a long time. But yeah, so much love and respect for, I mean, all immigrants who bring their kids here and try to give them a better life. It's Yeah, it's one of the hardest
Do
things.
you feel you more from India or from United States?
I feel very American, and I do try to get in touch with my Desi roots, but the best way to do that is through food because we Indians have the best food on the planet. Sorry, everyone, we've got the best food, and it really is like a door into our culture when you smell the
Okay, is
spices
there
and
anything like American food except barbecue? No,
cheeseburgers.
cheeseburger. No, I am serious. Because okay, you define like Italy.
Mm-hmm.
You can define their culture, their food, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like we define our background. In America, how we define our food. What as a chef? How somebody asks you what is American food? What would you say? Is it
Cheeseburgers, honestly.
what?
Cheeseburgers and hot dogs and processed French fries and things like that don't really have a lot of.
But those are not actual. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but those are not.
You don't think those are American foods?
And no, not that they are American, but I don't think so. We can categorize in actual
Mm.
chef work.
Oh, not
Like,
chef work, no.
it's like when you go to Italy, the way they chop the tomato, they put the
Mm.
basil, they put this, they put Alfredo. Like when you go Alfredo sauce, is different than here.
Yeah.
When you go like a pomodori, like a bruschetta, is different
Mm-hmm.
than here. All that stuff, but. I don't get it. Like, people ask me, like Persian food,
Yeah.
Iranian
Easy.
food, it's just different.
Yeah.
Like Indian food, I love it. Tikka masala, all that stuff,
Yeah.
It's how we define our American food. Is it cheeseburger, as you said, at the
I mean,
process?
I don't mean to offend anybody
No,
who
it's
is.
not. I think it's a reality that we have to face it.
Yeah. I think if you were to go to like a fine dining restaurant that describes himself as American, it would just be a lot of meat and potatoes, or, you know, a big piece of steak with a Caesar salad, or I think American
Barbecue.
Yeah, barbecue, of course. I think we take foods from all over the country, or all over the world, excuse me, and then mash it all together and say it's American.
What kind of food your clients are requesting the most?
Definitely a mix. I have a handful of clients that really like when I come up with ideas, especially of things that are seasonal. So using, in the summer, we're using a lot of fresh corn and zucchini and heirloom tomatoes and herbs from my garden and things like that. But
Oh, you have
for
a garden?
I have like a little, so I'm not very good at growing things. I have
You
like
kill
one
plants?
of those. I do.
Really? My
I
wife
think
does that.
I don't know what the problem is, but I have one of those little gardens. It's called like an air garden. And so it does all the work for you. It has like a lamp at the top, and then there's water in the bottom, and you just like plant these little seeds and cones.
Like
I just got
basil?
it on Amazon, and you can just plant any herb and you don't have to do any
You
work, and it
planting
does it for
basil
you.
and mint? I love
Like
basil.
basil, mint, rosemary,
Oh,
parsley, chives, things like that. So just a lot of freshness. Yeah. So my clients will ask for any kind of food. I will say that I love cooking Indian food and all types of Italian food, but I like doing like handmade pastas, especially if they have gluten allergies.
what is your favorite Indian restaurant in Austin? Come on, say it.
So it used to
Or
be,
rank them.
yeah, it used to be Taj Palace, but they recently closed down. They were here for like over 30 years. My grandpa actually knew the
I
owners.
used to go there in Anderson.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And I don't know what happened, but they closed recently. Right now, I would say Saffron in Far West
Been there
is one of
too.
my favorites. I don't eat out Indian a lot because I'm so not
Have you tried clay
judgy.
pit?
Yes. Clay pit is delicious, and they do make authentic food. I think it's a little overpriced because of the atmosphere, because it's beautiful. Service is
It's a
great.
beautiful restaurant. Service is great. Food is great.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people will say that about any kind of higher end restaurant. Like if you're Mexican and you see Mexican food that's $40 a plate, you're like, that's not real. That's not fair. I feel that way about Indian
You say,
food.
oh,
I'm
yo,
like,
yeah.
oh,
Yeah,
that's
what you have to pay like $40 for fajita.
yeah, exactly. So
It's just
I'm a little, what's the word?
Tarka is good.
Tarka is great. Yeah. It's also, I think there's an affiliation between them and
They
Clay
are
Pit.
sister companies.
Yeah, that's why I thought that. But I'm a little bit of a little judgy when it comes to Indian food because I'd
Why?
rather make it.
Because you know how to make it
I'd
and you
rather
go
make
over
it
there,
myself.
you tear them apart.
Yeah, a
Oh,
little
this
bit.
sauce is not like.
There's a lot of places I haven't been to, especially like Cedar Park area. There's a lot of Indian restaurants that people say are great that I just haven't tried. I'm gonna try Dosa Shack this week. So they're a new food truck.
Listen up, guys. Be careful. She's coming.
They they just open and they specialize only in dosa, which is like a South Indian, almost like a
I want to
crepe.
give it a shot. Yeah.
And so,
I live in Cedar Park. Yeah.
oh wow.
I have to give it a shot. Yeah.
So I've heard good things about them, and they're like
You know, when you
authentic.
talk about you talk about food, your eyes are lighting like, you love
Like this
food.
is my soul.
You love
all I
food. You
care
have a
about.
very close relationship with food. Is Joel like that?
It's so funny. Before he met me, he had never had sushi or like any kind of Indian food or anything spicy, and now
The guy from
I
Seattle
know.
having a spicy food, Indian food. How he handled
It's
that?
amazing. He can eat spicier foods than me now. He loves
Really?
all of it, and I think he started caring because he knew that I cared. So he's the least picky eater, which is ironic because he used to be like the pickiest eater. But he,
Does he know how to cook? When you got a chef.
no comment.
But he's got a chef at home. Come on, I wouldn't cook either.
I don't give him a chance to
I
cook.
know.
That kitchen is mine.
You cook a lot at home?
He doesn't get to cook in the kitchen.
Yeah, but
It's
you
my
cook
kitchen.
a lot
Yes,
at home.
yeah. So I cook all the time, and he does help me come up with like menus for the week. And I mean,
How about Nadia? Like spice? You get
oh, sweet child. She is so picky. It's so hard to get her to eat anything, so I just have to cater to her. And she's now that she's a little bit older, she'll try more foods, but she doesn't like. She'll eat like plain naan bread. She won't eat any kind of curry or any kind of Indian food.
Have you
even
ever
if I
had
make
Persian
it.
food?
I'm trying to think. I mean, what are some Persian foods?
Next door.
Oh,
3 doors down.
okay.
It's a great.
That restaurant that was okay.
Yeah, that Shandi's is a great restaurant.
I
go
know.
there.
I mean, I've had like
And
kebabs.
Houston, yeah, we have Castro, but that's a really Persian restaurant.
What are some like dishes that you like?
They have a lot of stews like a korma sabzi and like fesenjan and qeime, and they have a great lamb shack because the way they prep the lamb shack, you gotta get rid of the smell and everything else and cook it, marinate it, and of course the tender beef kebab, chicken kebab, juja kebab, which is a baby chicken.
Oh.
Is good with the saffron rice because in Persian we use a lot of saffron.
Yes.
I brought it from actually when I went back home to visit my mom. I brought it, a real
Nice.
saffron. It's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
What is a real saffron? As you know it, when you add it, it's changed things. Persian authentic food is hard to find, but in Houston and Dallas we have a lot of great Persian restaurants.
Same with Indian food. Houston and Dallas is where you're gonna find it. You don't find much Indian food here.
But the Austin is growing, and as the restaurants, every day you see some restaurant going out, some restaurants opening up. But what is your feedback on food trucks as a chef?
I think I used to love food trucks. I used to go to food trucks multiple times a week.
You think it's a growing industry or?
I don't think so. I think it's a great place to start, especially if you're trying out a new, restaurant idea or a concept.
To
And
test it.
and see how your, audience responds to it. And then if going from there, opening a brick and mortar. Because especially in Texas, I'm much more open and more likely going to an actual brick and mortar when it's hot 6 months out of the year in Austin.
yeah.
I don't want to sit outside at a food truck, and I'm not going out at 2 a.m. anymore. So it's not. It depends on who your audience is, I think.
Yeah, it served a very specific audience.
And
the
it used to
target
be
audience, yeah.
it used to be so trendy and such an Austin eccentric thing, and now it's kind of in my eyes it's not as fun. I don't know. It's not as apparent and not I don't see it as a growing industry as much as it used to be. But again, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's very challenging, especially the cost of food and everything else, and permitting and everything else is hard. But one of the reason that when I was a restaurant consultant, I did consulting for Jack in the Box for summer restaurant. After I sold the restaurant, I was a restaurant consultant, and I was going inside the restaurant. I kind of tear them apart, put them back together. The problem was chefs, they think they can run the restaurant, and they'll ask me, I want to have my restaurant, I want to open a restaurant. And I said, you are a chef. With all due respect, you got to focus on your talent and just make sure you get the back of the house and run the kitchen, all your staff, and create the creation of you, and then comes to the front, be serve it. But the biggest problem was that they want to run both sides, the operation and that's hard.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's what a lot of restaurants, they go out. The same thing, the operators, they want to cook too. They have no, I'm serious. I know how to cook. I said, what? Scramble egg?
Yeah.
It's-
And the
it's-
scale.
Yeah, skill, and then stay and learn. Stay and learn, and stay in your lane. And then go get somebody like you or anybody that is chef and say, hey, This is your division. That's your department. Then when the two people are coming together, it's going to be successful.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard something like that, or any friend in your community that the restaurants they're going out because of that?
Anytime a restaurant closes, I assume it's from not wanting to close, and I assume I don't ask questions because I'm sure it's a sore subject, but I could see that happening when I do see chefs at the very forefront of the restaurant and they're the ones doing the marketing, or they're the ones, they're the face of the restaurant and they're trying to do everything. I can't say that there's a specific restaurant in mind, but
But you have seen the restaurants that they have a great food, but the next month you go say, oh, they're gone.
yeah,
They're great food.
yeah. And so you wonder, is it rent? Is it, not enough customers, or not enough staff, or is it all of those things? I know that a lot of restaurants have a hard time keeping staff or finding staff, waiters, things like that.
And community,
And yeah, and keeping their customers coming back. So,
because community and supporting community and vice versa is very important. And you are big in that community relationship.
yeah.
You
think it's
care about
important.
your community. And why? Why? Because I read all your stuff and
Yeah.
you are really into community.
I think going back to what we said in the beginning, they're trusting me, and to trust me says a lot. And so I'm going to honor that trust and respect that trust, and do right by you and doing the right thing, or making sure every single thing I put out is 100% amazing. I'm never going to serve something I wouldn't eat myself. And just having respect for yourself as much as you respect your audience and
Do
your
you have you ever
community.
done any charity work for your community?
When I used to host dinner, I had like ticketed dinners, so I would throw dinner events at different venues in Austin, and I would sell tickets for that, and I would donate proceeds to different charities like Austin Pets Alive and Saheli, and especially women supporting charities, so things like that. But probably since the pandemic, I haven't done any pro bono work other than sharing especially on social media, if there's an event or something, and sharing that with my community and doing what I can with the marketing side of things. But as far as like cooking for charitable events, I don't think I've done anything specifically on that note.
But the way you look at life, and your culture, your parents, your relationship, and what you do and what you're trying to do to serve a community and actually continue your passion is very it's very amazing what you have done, and and where you're going. And you don't know where you're going until you get that point. And I know you're gonna grow, but very impressive. And a lot of people, they're gonna watch this. They are female, and I always say that female, they have the same power as a man. They can do anything they want. I'm a female advocate, and and I believe that strongly, that sometimes they're smarter. I can tell you that. What advice do you have for the female entrepreneurs that it doesn't matter what they're gonna do? They want to be a chef, they want to be a designer, what advice do you have for them to get even started? To even, do I need to do this? Because you ask that question from yourself.
I think when your passion and your talent meets, that's when you're going to be successful. So if you're really like, if I was really passionate about fashion, but I didn't know how to put an outfit together, I'm not going to be a stylist, right? If you can't make your passion meet your talent, it's going to be very hard to be successful. So find something you're passionate about, and then invest in learning how to do it well. So if you love food but you're not a great cook,
Just eat.
Just eat until you figure it out. Do some online cooking classes in Austin. There's at ACC, they even have cooking
Yes.
classes. Buy like a master class online, study, learn from people around you, shadow chefs and private chefs in town. There's always a way you can invest in your education if that's something you're really passionate about. And don't be scared to go for it if you really think that's what you're meant to do. So I kept trying to find other avenues. Maybe I should be an office manager because I'm
Oh,
organized.
yeah.
I'm not passionate about that, you know? Just because you're talented in that doesn't mean that that should be your job or you should be what you go after. So finding a way for your passion and your talents to meet, that's going to make you the most successful version of yourself in any category or any type of work. And finding, if you don't have people around you that support you, find them.
That's so important.
There are plenty of people that are going to believe in you. You just have to find the right community and the right friends. And in Austin, there's all type of meetup groups
Yes.
and business, networking groups and things like that where you can find like-minded people. And so, yeah, it takes work to make everything kind of line up in a cohesive way, but never think something is out of reach just because it's a lofty idea. I think, billionaires at one point thought, oh, I can't do that. But then they
Yes.
went after it, and you just keep going and you keep building momentum and you believe in yourself more than anyone else. So yes, I have all these people around me that love me and believe in me and 7 years of
They all come back
experience,
to you.
but I'm so confident in who I am and my abilities and know I can do anything I want and I will do anything I want. And so like not to let that get diminished by obstacles or
That's the toughest thing, to tell yourself that you deserve it and you have something to offer. And that's not going to happen until you raise your standards.
yeah.
And then when you raise your standards, everything changes.
Yeah.
And then you become a new person. But if people, they're going to reach out to you and they're going to hire you for their event, or anything else, how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at The Monique Story, or you can email me directly, hello@themoniquestory.com. I'm open to anybody and everybody who wants to chat or has questions. And I also have a recipe book I just launched
Wow.
that is available for purchase. And so if you're wanting to look into meal prep, or if you don't necessarily want me to cook your meals for you, but you want to learn how to cook, I have my original recipes
Wow.
out in a online recipe book that's available as well.
That's great. It was nice talking to you. I'd say
Yeah.
your life story is fascinating and I learned a lot.
Thank you.
And, I hope we see each other again. I'm sure we do.
I
We do.
I hope so too.
But, it was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Thanks.